The congressional hearing in Washington, D.C. transcended a routine procedure, transforming into a rare, explosive confrontation that resonated nationwide. What should have been a mundane agenda item became a memorable landmark. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina, with her signature sharp tongue and provocative, polemical assertions, commanded the dais. The air in the studio crackled with tension, breaths were held. Mace, adept at ensnaring political opponents with her words, carried a self-assured, condescending demeanor. Always aware of the media's gaze, she meticulously calculated every move. However, this time, Representative Jasmine Crockett of Mississippi stepped onto the stage armed only with unwavering resolve and a keen, analytical mind. Crockett was poised to overturn Mace's expectations, to completely rewrite her familiar script. Mace's calculated, aggressive rhetoric instantly crumbled before Crockett's calm, clear, and direct retort. Words caught in her throat, her self-confident posture vanished, replaced by panic and discernible astonishment. Mace's characteristic, mocking smile transformed with each of Crockett's words into sheer surprise, evident bewilderment, and even a slight tremor. Her body language shifted entirely. Before the cameras, a politician's mask fell. This was not merely a political skirmish but a moment where truth and intellect confronted a direct, face-to-face challenge, a pivotal, unforgettable moment for careers. That instant was etched into the minds of millions of viewers, raising serious questions about the future of political discourse. This situation could even set a precedent for how future hearings might unfold. So, what made Crockett's response so crushing in that moment? Was it merely presenting accurate information, or did she exploit a critical vulnerability, Mace's weakest point, in her own strategy? What truly stunned Mace before the entire nation? What precisely went into crafting that crushing clapback that left her utterly bewildered? And was this the genesis of a new star, or the downfall of an empire? Let's delve behind the scenes of that hearing, examining Mace's true motivations behind her claims, the meticulous preparation of Crockett's response, how this event fundamentally altered the culture of debate in Washington, and the widespread political repercussions it created, step by step. This is not just a news report, it is a story of truth and courage, of accountability and being the voice of the people, shaking the very foundations of American politics. The hearing room was silent, yet a palpable tension hung in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Committee members were seated, witnesses called to the stand. The temperature in the room seemed to rise, and camera flashes occasionally popped. Representative Nancy Mace, at the witness stage of the session, was at the podium. The subject was vital but often a casualty of political infighting. Federal support programs for poverty reduction. Mace, positioning herself as a champion for taxpayers against wasteful spending, a guardian of public funds, and a fiscally disciplined conservative, launched into a series of carefully crafted rhetorical questions and insinuations targeting these programs. Each sentence was like a sharp spear thrown at an adversary, aiming not to disarm but to intimidate. Her voice carried a mocking tone, and a slight sneer played on her face, one corner of her mouth subtly curled upward, exuding a kind of false confidence. There's not a single shred of evidence that this program works. It's merely symbolic. You're squandering taxpayer money, especially when this country is grappling with inflation, when ordinary American families are struggling to make ends meet. These funds are just flowing into a black hole. She boomed, her voice echoing through the hearing room. As always, she appeared self-assured and unassailable, every word a direct jab at the other panel members and the audience, as if challenging them. She constantly waved printed papers in her hand, supposedly supporting her facts. However, the camera caught that these were merely general headlines, sensational graphics, and selected out-of-context quotes, lacking detailed and verifiable data. Mace's discourse typically targeted the public's financial anxieties, designed to trigger emotional responses, and relied more on ideological rhetoric than logical arguments. We're taking money from Americans' pockets and pouring it into a bureaucratic monster that produces no results. This lack of program effectiveness is stealing the American dream. These socialist experiments are driving our country to ruin, she asserted, reinforcing her argument. She was so confident that, for a moment, she assumed everyone in the room agreed with her, that her words were undeniable truths. Even after stepping down from the podium at the end of her speech, she looked at Crockett with a triumphant air, as if to say, "It's your turn now, but what could you possibly say?" Opposite her, seated as a committee member, was Jasmine Crockett. With an impassive demeanor, she listened silently to every sentence Mace uttered. Her eyes remained fixed on Mace's, as if a hawk observing its prey. Instead of taking notes, she seemed to weigh every one of Mace's words, as if patiently searching for the weakness beneath each provocative statement, the emptiness at the core of every exaggerated claim. The host finally breathed a sigh of relief as Mace finished her address, and Mace, with a disdainful glance at Crockett, said, "I hope my colleagues take these facts into consideration." As if to challenge, "It's your turn, let's see what you've got." As the host turned to Crockett, Crockett looked directly into Mace's eyes, an unwavering resolve and a slight, almost imperceptible smile gracing her lips. "I am familiar with Representative Mace's habit of making such assertions," Crockett stated, her voice calm but with a steely ring, every word carefully chosen, as if she spoke from calculation rather than improvisation. "However, I believe she has forgotten something. We are not here to perform. We are not here to put on a show, to engage in political theater. We work with facts. And these facts paint a picture quite different from the narrative you've presented, in fact, entirely contradictory. Your rhetoric, unfortunately, does not align with concrete evidence." Crockett reached for a simple, spiral-bound notepad in her hand, tapping it lightly with a single finger on the table. The sound resonated in the room, adding an unexpected layer of gravitas. "This useless program you speak of, there is a concrete report stating that it has reduced the poverty rate by a full 8% over the past 3 years in a community called Hope Springs in Charleston, South Carolina, your own state. This report is supported by direct feedback from local churches, food banks, civil society organizations, and the Small Business Association. Furthermore, a surprising 12% increase in revenue has been reported for small businesses in that area, which directly demonstrates the program's contribution to the local economy." Mace's mocking smile froze, her eyes slightly widened, her jaw tightened slightly, a hint of surprise and discomfort appearing on her face. "This is manipulated data. Those centers are a political attack on my state. These reports are lying to you. These are communist fabrications. A deep state conspiracy," she retorted, her voice rising, a flush appearing on her face, as if she were embracing the role of a victim. "No," Crockett calmly countered. "This is an official, independent report published by the United States Census Bureau and the University of South Carolina's Department of Economic Research. The impartiality of these institutions is internationally recognized. And this report, unlike your claims, demonstrates that taxpayer money is being used exactly as it should be, directly and measurably improving the quality of life for your own constituents." The air in the studio grew heavy. Everyone in the room held their breath. The host, feigning surprise at this sudden reality check, cleared his throat slightly and looked at his monitor, an urgent voice from the production team in his ear. "Representative Mace, these reports appear to contradict your arguments quite clearly. In fact, we have begun broadcasting the graphs of this data live on our screens. Ladies and gentlemen, you can follow along yourselves now." Mace's expression oscillated between shock and discomfort, her brows furrowed, panic visible in her eyes, her body beginning to tremble slightly. "This is a complete smear campaign. They are hiding the true impact of the program. This is data from the deep state lying to you. I am the voice of the people. They are hiding the truth. They are deceiving the public. This is a defamation campaign." Mace now sat upright in her chair, her lips pursed, hands clasped tightly, reaching for her water but unable to drink, clearly shaken despite her attempts to compose herself. "This is a political show. An attack on my state. You are ignoring the program's failures. Your only agenda is to defame me and weaken my party. This congressional session cannot be turned into a spectacle." But Crockett was not putting on a show. It was a clear, direct, and unshakable counterattack based on evidence, much like a lawyer cornering a witness in court, confronting them with facts. And for the first time in her career, Nancy Mace did not seem like the dominant voice in the room. Shock was etched on her face. Her voice had begun to waver. A slight sheen of sweat was visible on her face, trickling down her forehead. There was no trace of her mocking demeanor left, replaced entirely by a vulnerable expression. No one on the panel, not even the host, knew that the notepad in Crockett's hand was not just random notes. This was a critical extract from a meticulously prepared file by Crockett's research team, detailing Mace's past similar claims and how they had been debunked. Each note contained a data point or document reference directly corresponding to a Mace claim, like undeniable receipts for every falsehood. The camera zoomed slightly on Crockett's face, her resolve becoming even more pronounced in her eyes. She hadn't raised her voice once, yet her firm and sharp tone was more effective than any shout, seemingly sharpening the air in the room, tearing down Mace's defense, as if with each word she was carving a crack in Mace's political armor. Every word built an impenetrable wall against Mace's aggressive stance, forcing her to retreat. And viewers at home were no longer just passive listeners. They were glued to their screens, holding their breath, following every second of this political drama. Phones lit up. Twitter, now X, was exploding, overflowing with instant comments and analyses. Thousands of users were exclaiming, "This is real opposition!" This was no longer a debate. It was becoming a teaching moment, the beginning of a political awakening. Viewers were taking screenshots in real time of Mace's cornered expression, of her mask falling, and these images quickly went viral, memes being rapidly produced. The host shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes fixed on the control panel. In his ear, the producer's voice. "We're getting live verification these reports are accurate. Furthermore, relevant correspondence is found on the committee's email server. These claims are very strong, we might have to cut the broadcast." The host, trying to regain composure, asked with a trembling voice. "Congresswoman Crockett, we know Representative Mace has made these claims before. Are you asserting with certainty that this data proves those claims wrong, or is there a misunderstanding? Perhaps it's taken out of context or misinterpreted." Jasmine didn't hesitate. A slight glint appeared in her eyes, her resolve strengthening. "Absolutely. There is nothing taken out of context. In fact, there is a meeting transcript from an October 2023 fundraising event in your state where you publicly criticized this program but simultaneously sought hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding from it to support your own campaign. This document clearly shows you trying to convince donors by speaking about the program's contributions to the local economy. Interestingly, this meeting took place less than a week after you publicly denounced the program as wasteful in national media, a period when you were clearly delivering different messages to moderate and partisan constituents." Mace's eyes widened, her jaw dropped, her pupils dilated. "This is impossible. That didn't happen. These are baseless allegations. You're talking about a private meeting, this should have been confidential. This is an illegal information leak." "Well then," Crockett said, her voice now even sharper. "Are you claiming this transcript is fake? Because this is taken from a document prepared by your own campaign team, presented to your donors, and explicitly labeled confidential, for donors only, Representative Mace. It bears both your signature and that of your campaign manager. Moreover, multiple donors who attended that meeting have confirmed the authenticity of this document and expressed that their trust in you has been shaken." The producer signaled for a commercial break, but it was too late. Viewers had already seen the live verification appear on screen. Mace's expression had completely transformed into one of utter shock. There was no comfortable confidence left, only a blank stare, trying to comprehend where the next blow would come from. Her facial muscles were tense, her eyes wide with disbelief, her mouth slightly agape, her breath quickening. Her previously assertive and mocking demeanor had, in an instant, dissolved into a vulnerable, almost choked astonishment, like an actor caught unawares on stage. At home, phones lit up, Reddit threads formed within seconds, even Facebook pages with no prior political interest were sharing links to this clip. It was spreading virally. On X, A user shared a close-up frozen frame of Mace's face with the caption, "When words fail, #MaceStunned." This garnered hundreds of thousands of retweets within minutes and trended worldwide. In fact, the #Clapback Crockett hashtag rose to number 1 in political discussion categories and remained at the top for weeks. Jasmine, undisturbed by the storm she had unleashed, kept her voice calm. People don't need to know all the bureaucratic details to understand when someone is speaking out of self-interest. You criticize a program publicly, but then behind closed doors you benefit from it for your own campaign coffers. That's quite clear, Representative. If you have a message for your constituents, please be honest. Trust their intelligence, don't try to manipulate them. Mace nodded, her eyes constantly darting around, searching for help, as if seeking an escape route but finding none. You are defaming me publicly. You have no proof. These are lies. This is a political witch hunt. I am innocent. This is a scenario invented by you and your team. Then sue me, Crockett said, her voice icy, challenging her. If I am wrong, take me to court. You know there are serious consequences for making false statements in Congress, don't you, Representative? Especially when the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the House Ethics Committee are involved. They are quite meticulous on this matter. Silence. The host blinked, clutching his cards tightly, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead due to urgent messages from the control room. He even felt the need to loosen his tie. Congresswoman Crockett, are you willing to testify under oath about all of this? This is a very serious accusation. Absolutely, Jasmine affirmed. And I am prepared to submit all these documents, along with a notarized affidavit from the source who provided them to me, to the House Ethics Committee. This is not just an allegation, this is a mountain of evidence, and every piece of it has been independently verified. It wasn't just Mace who seemed tense now. The air in the room was electrified, almost impossibly dense. The program's legal team would be scrutinizing this segment for days, weeks. Every word, every image, every breath. But Crockett knew the risk. She hadn't come to hurl accusations, she had come to set the stage, to reveal the truth. At that moment, she pulled another small, leather-bound notebook from her jacket pocket, emblazoned with the words, "Sensitive Media Strategies." This time, the notebook was somewhat thicker, and prominently displayed the inscription, "Confidential information, for internal use only." She slid it slowly across the table, not towards Mace, but towards the host. This notebook contains a complete record of Representative Mace's past and present inconsistent statements, including the sources for each, drafts of press releases, social media campaign strategies, competitor analysis reports, and detailed context on how these claims were integrated into media strategies. There are even some internal communications and advice from your campaign consultants on how to explain such inconsistencies. I suppose this rather thoroughly refutes your political show and smear campaign arguments, doesn't it, Representative? Or is this another new conspiracy theory invented by the deep state or my team? Mace reached for her water. Her hands trembled so violently that she could barely hold the glass, and a few drops spilled onto the table. Her eyes fixated on the notebook, as if hypnotized. The host's voice dropped an octave, his eyes fixed on the notebook's title, his face contorted in disbelief. We were not expecting this today, Congresswoman Crockett. This is truly unexpected. Were these documents obtained through legal means? Neither was I, Jasmine said. But sometimes the truth emerges at unexpected moments and from unexpected places. And the public has a right to know. A position in the House of Representatives is not a license to lie or mislead the public. And yes, all documents were obtained through lawful means. The control room was in chaos. Producers were shouting at each other. The channel's legal counsel was frantically messaging the executive producer, as if an emergency alarm had been sounded. They had just broadcast something that could fundamentally shatter the reputation, and even risk the political future, of an active legislator. And Crockett hadn't even reached her final point yet. The shock on Mace's face had now given way to deep contemplation, as if thousands of scenarios were rapidly spinning in her mind, trying to calculate the potential outcomes, the end of her political career. This moment would prove to be one of the most defining in Nancy Mace's political career. Before anyone could truly question Nancy Mace's political stance, she was perceived as a distinctive voice within the Republican Party, hailing from South Carolina, yet drawing media attention with her sharp rhetoric and provocative pronouncements. As a former military intelligence analyst and a successful businesswoman, she entered politics as an outsider, positioning herself as a voice that stood against the establishment and was committed to sound Republican principles. Being the first female graduate of the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, earned her a special place in the media's eye, creating an image of a pioneer and a boundary pusher. This garnered strong sympathy from her base and among some moderate voters. People liked her because they believed she spoke the truth and was honest, at least that's what they thought. She attended town hall meetings, sometimes speaking directly and other times with a mocking tone, portraying herself as a voice of common sense. However, this also exposed the fact that her statements frequently contradicted each other. These contradictions were generally aimed at maximizing her political advantage or steering the agenda in her favor, a strategy she deemed necessary to survive and ascend in the political arena. But behind this public image lay a meticulous calculation, even cunning. Mace's arguments often lacked concrete evidence but were highly effective in triggering emotional responses and provoking her opponents. This was part of her tactic of playing politics through emotion, not facts. She attracted media attention, cornered political rivals, and consolidated her base. Her sharp and controversial statements, especially on social media, had become her brand. Every comment she made seemed to become a headline. Although she positioned herself as an independent Republican, she rarely deviated from the party's main line in crucial votes and debates. This dual approach allowed her to gain support from her party's base while also appearing to appeal to moderate voters, reinforcing her image as everyone's representative. However, this also left her vulnerable and defenseless against facts and direct evidence, as her arguments lacked solid foundations. Mace's political career was, in part, largely built on her rhetorical prowess and her strategy of unsettling the opposition. This approach often ignored federal reports, actual data, or societal realities, instead offering a highly charged, polemical debate environment based on strong emotions. This situation had, unknowingly, placed her political reputation on a fragile foundation. These inconsistencies in her discourse severely questioned her sincere image, and this very issue had become Mace's greatest weakness. The disparities between her public criticisms and her behind-the-scenes requests for funds, in particular, could mark a decisive turning point in her political career. For instance, during a 2022 campaign, while she vehemently advocated for cutting federal spending and fiscal discipline, there were allegations that she was simultaneously engaging in intense lobbying efforts behind the scenes to increase federal funds flowing into her state. At that time, these allegations were swept under the rug, either due to insufficient evidence or because they escaped public attention. However, with Crockett's newly presented documents, these old claims could resurface, this time with much stronger, undeniable evidence. Mace was skilled at managing media cycles. She could turn any scandal or controversy to her advantage, even transforming it into an opportunity. But this time, the evidence used against her seemed to have leaked from her own communication strategies, and this was a situation she could not control, one that caught her entirely unprepared. This situation posed a genuine threat to her political future, as she faced the risk of losing public trust. To understand how Crockett's notebook and her response became so effective, we need to focus not on a financial whistleblower, but on a meticulous research team and public relations strategists who thoroughly analyzed Nancy Mace's past speeches and claims. Jasmine Crockett's team had been meticulously documenting Mace's frequently used argument patterns, contradictory statements, and misinformation for months, often working late into the night. They specifically focused on past records where Mace publicly criticized a particular program while simultaneously requesting funds from that very program for her state. This formed the cornerstone of Crockett's strategy, providing her with an unshakable, legally sound foundation. Dr. Lena Khan, a member of Jasmine's team with prior experience in public policy analysis, data journalism, and forensic accounting, had meticulously examined Mace's favorite tactics down to the finest detail. Dr. Khan had documented the inconsistencies between Mace's public statements on a particular issue and what she expressed in private meetings or fundraising events. For example, there were emails showing positive feedback from some nonprofit organizations in Mace's constituency regarding the program she claimed was wasteful. These emails had not been published in the local press but were part of Mace's office's internal communications. This revealed a significant gap between the image Mace projected to the public and the reality, and this gap was growing, creating an impression of hypocrisy. Dr. Khan's team had meticulously sifted through emails sent to Mace's campaign donors, local council records, and even sworn statements from former staff, under the condition of anonymity. Crucially, they obtained audio recordings and meeting minutes from Mace's 2023 fundraising event. These perfectly aligned with Mace's confidential, for donors only documents, definitively proving the accuracy of the information. Dr. Khan meticulously compiled these documents, presenting them to Crockett. Jasmine, upon receiving this intelligence, did not rush. Instead of creating a media frenzy, she waited for the most opportune moment during the hearing, the precise time to deliver the most impactful blow. Her response would not be just a rhetorical counter, but a precise, evidence-based clapback that demonstrated Mace's contradiction through her own words and actions. As Crockett prepared her response, she planned how to dismantle Mace's common sense image using Mace's own conflicting statements. She rehearsed for hours with her team, perfecting every sentence and the nuance of every word, much like an actor memorizing a crucial line in a play. This was not just a speech, it was a surgical operation, precise and sharp. Each data point was strategically placed to target a specific claim, leaving no room for Mace to escape. All avenues of evasion were sealed off. Crockett herself had a legal background and experience in civil rights cases. This provided her with the ability to frame her arguments within a legal context, supporting them with legal terminology, a critical advantage Mace had not anticipated, perhaps even underestimated. Crockett was aware of the risk involved in publicly presenting this information, but she believed that revealing the truth was worth the risk, that the public had a right to know. Her past experiences in civil rights activism had taught her how to act in such challenging and risky situations, to speak with data, remain calm, and never compromise on ethical principles. This was not merely a political maneuver but a courageous step taken for political integrity. Crockett's goal was not solely to embarrass Mace. Her aim was to elevate the quality of political discourse in the public eye. She sought to create an environment where politicians were not just making claims, but were obligated to substantiate those claims, to be accountable. Therefore, the documents she used were obtained from publicly available sources or through ethical means, in full compliance with the law. No illegal information was leaked, which gave Crockett's move full legitimacy and preemptively debunked Mace's arguments of a political witch hunt, or conspiracy theory. Crockett's team had also thoroughly reviewed the transcripts of all of Mace's past hearings, press conferences, and interviews. This allowed Crockett to identify Mace's rhetorical patterns and weak points in advance. This in-depth preparation laid the groundwork for Mace's unexpected, crushing clapback. Crockett was aware of the risk involved in publicly presenting this information, but she believed that revealing the truth was worth the risk, that the public had a right to know. Her past experiences in civil rights activism had taught her how to act in such challenging and risky situations, to speak with data, remain calm, and never compromise on ethical principles. This was not just a political maneuver, but a courageous step taken for political integrity. This event did not merely mark a turning point in Nancy Mace's public standing, it also re-examined, perhaps permanently altering, the culture of debate and rhetoric in American politics. Jasmine Crockett's display of intellect, composure, and directness once again highlighted the public's yearning for sincerity and consistency from politicians, and it raised that expectation even higher, effectively setting a new standard for politicians. In the aftermath of the hearing, Nancy Mace's press team fell silent. They avoided responding to media inquiries and did not post new content on their social media accounts. This silence further emphasized the gravity of the incident and demonstrated how much difficulty Mace had in defending her position. Mace stayed out of the public eye for several days, even submitting excused absences for some scheduled congressional meetings. This was uncharacteristic for her and led to widespread speculation among the public, with various theories circulating among political observers. Some local donors and political committees in South Carolina began to reevaluate their support for Mace after this incident, with some even stating they would withdraw their funding. On the other hand, Jasmine Crockett's office faced intense media attention. Interview requests and congratulatory messages poured in. Her office phones rang incessantly, and Crockett's team struggled to manage the deluge, working almost like a crisis center. Crockett chose to focus on the core issue rather than capitalizing on the attention for her own political gain. "My job is to provide accurate information to the people and ensure accountability," she stated. "This hearing showed how powerful facts can be and once again proved that politicians should be held responsible for what they say. This is just the beginning. Our fight for political integrity will continue." On social media, hashtags like #ClapbackCrockett and #MaceStunned quickly trended, shared millions of times, and internet memes spread rapidly. Mace's moment of shock became a subject of widespread humor. Commentators analyzed how Crockett delivered her response. With politeness but lethally. How she wielded words and evidence like a master swordsman. This moment served as a lesson that politics is not just about shouting loudly but also about winning with intelligence and facts. Many columnists noted that Crockett's move brought a breath of fresh air to the debate environment in Congress. Even some conservative commentators criticized Mace's performance in this hearing and conceded that Crockett played a fair game and revealed the truth. Among the public, Crockett's stance was perceived as common-sense leadership and significantly raised her political profile, earning her a national platform. Could this event mark the beginning of a new era of accountability in political discourse? Will this incident change the course of debates in Washington? Will politicians now think twice before taking the podium, able to stand by their words, or will they continue to shy away from confronting evidence? How will Nancy Mace's political career be affected after this event? How will her constituents evaluate these contradictions, and will their trust in her be shaken, or will their loyalty endure? And will Jasmine Crockett, with this bold move, emerge as a new power figure on Capitol Hill, setting a new standard for political debates, or will this remain just a one-time moment? To follow all these developments, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. To ensure you don't miss out on such in-depth analyses, please also like our video and share your thoughts in the comments section. We will continue to shed light on the realities behind the scenes of politics. Will the future be shaped by the light of truth, or will old tactics continue to prevail?